Hi, and welcome to video 7 about function basics in R. In this video, we're going to talk about how to handle it when you have multiple conditions. So one thing you can do is you can write multiple if statements. You can do if this, else if this, else if this. But that gets a little difficult to read if you've got more than just a couple of them. So instead, we're going to look at this function that uses switch. So switch is another way to do this. So in this case, I'll input my function. Let's see. Input my function. I'm going to call my function name is doOp, which is do operation. And it's going to be a function of 3 inputs. So the x, the y, and the operation. So the operation I'll call op. And it's going to switch based on the value of the operation. So if the operation is named plus, it will do x plus y. If it's named minus, it will do x minus y, so forth. The last thing I give it is a stop for an unknown operation. Okay, so when I execute this, let me just take this last line out of here. So I will execute that with the plus, and it tells me 6. So if I do the same thing with 2, 4, and tell it divide, oops, I better put an E on that or it won't know it. Then it will do 2 divided by 3, or 2/3. If I gave it a name that I don't have in there, so say I did do op 2 for ABS. Let's put that in quotes. It'll tell me there's an error and that it's an unknown op. So it produces this text here in response when there's an error. Now, you need to be aware that in order to make my document knit, when I had an error, that I had to change the chunk option at the head of the chunk to say error equals true. So when you're knitting your documents and you're trying to reproduce error messages, you have to be sure that you set that to be error equals true in your chunk header. Otherwise, your document will not knit. Okay? So, some more coding style standards. You're going to put your function code and if statement codes both inside curly brackets. You will put your opening curly bracket never on its own line, but always followed by a new line. And you put the closing curly bracket on its own line, unless it's followed by the word else. And use your indentation. Okay, so now you're going to do a couple more exercises to add to your homework for this module. So first, you're going to write a function called FizzBuzz. It'll take a single number as an input. If the number is divisible by 3, it will return the word fizz. If it's divisible by 5, it returns the word buzz. If it's divisible by both 3 and 5, it'll return the word fizzbuzz. If it's not divisible by either 3 or 5, it will return the number. So make sure you have the code working and you have the logic worked out in your head, and try it for some simple cases before you put it inside of the function. The next exercise is, here's some nested if statements. So this takes a temperature. It checks if the temperature is negative, it's going to say freezing. Otherwise, if it's less than 10, it'll say cold, so forth. So it's going to produce one of these words based on the temperature that's put into the function. But I want you to rewrite this using the cut function. Now you're going to have to look up, use your help, so use your question mark cut to see what cut does, and see how to use this, how to rewrite this using that cut function. Also, How would I have changed the cut function if these had had strictly less than signs rather than less than or equal? And what is the main advantage to using cut for the problem? So what happens if instead of having a single number for temp, if temp is a function that has many values in it? So that's your hint. And then here's a summary of math functions that are frequently used. So these are built-in functions. So you might want to just keep a reference of these somewhere. So you have the absolute value, the square root, the ceiling function, the floor function, the round function, the significant functions, the log, which does the natural log, the log 10, which does the log base 10, and exp, which does e to the power of x. So these are some of the built-in math functions that you may want to use at various times in your coding. So you just want to make a note of those and come back to them if and when you need them. Come back and we'll continue on with video 8.